think we're going to get started. So welcome everybody. If you have not heard me say it 18 times, I'll say it once more. Please make sure that you've signed in on the app, just so that way you are checked in for the session. So thanks for being here this morning. We're going to be looking at AI policy practice. Watch out for the pitfalls. My name is Ralph Losanno, and I'd like to just start off with give you a little bit of background on who I am, and then I just want to know who's in the room. Who is everybody? So out of college, I worked for The Late Show with David Letterman. I was not an education major. I had no thoughts of being in education. I worked in production for just shy of 2 years and then decided, I'm going to switch things up and this is not for me. So I went back and did Rutgers alternate route and became certified in K-5 education. And I got a job working in Hillsborough Township, and I was an elementary classroom teacher, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, fourth grade for 10 years. And then I became the district's NGSS coach and technology coach and grant writer for 3 years. And in the process there, I decided to go through the NJ Excel program, got my licensure for supervisory and principal, and then moved down the road to Flemington Raritan and became supervisor of technology. And through the years of restructuring and budget constraints, I became the director of technology, student data, and assessment. And I'm sure there's a few other commas in there as well, just like the rest of all of our jobs. It is constantly growing and evolving and expanding. End of the day, everything that I do for these two guys here. And I'm sure that we all have similar experiences of what gets us up in the morning and keeps us going. So that's a little bit about who I am. I just want to know who's in the room. So how many people in here are classroom teachers? Oh my God, that's almost everybody. All right. How many people in here serve dual roles as classroom teacher and maybe in a supervisory role as well? Okay. Anybody that I have not touched upon your job? Okay, cool. So your district received 3 emails. Teacher asks if they can use ChatGPT to write IEP accommodations. Principal wants to purchase an AI lesson planning tool. And a parent asks whether AI is grading their child's writing. Does your district have a policy for any of these? For all of these? Does anybody know? And if you don't know, that's totally fine because most people don't know.
Pretty sure we don't.
We do? We don't? See, we're all over the place. And that is true for everything we're going to talk about today. So today's session isn't about AI. It's about making sound decisions and the questions that will arise from the use of AI. And these questions will arise, as we all know, because they always do. And if you don't have a policy, they will come fast and furious. And if you do have a policy, they will come fast and furious. So why we need AI governance, policy pitfalls, and then some framework building that you can take back with you. Apparently we are going to prepare for the flood. All right. AI in education. So AI, revolution is here. But it's actually less of a revolution, more of an evolution. I think we've all heard this in one way, shape, or form before. And I only put this up here to bring us to the next slide where I say, before we freak out, let's think back to calculators came into the classroom. It was the end of math. No one will ever learn math again. Students will not understand what math is. This is going to destroy education. Then we moved to 98 with Google. No one is ever going to learn anything. They're only going to Google it. This is the end of education. 2022, ChatGPT blew open the doors with generative AI in the common marketplace. And this is now the next iteration of this is the end of education. It's not. One step at a time. We made it through the other things. Everything evolves. Everything continues to grow. We are going to have to adjust what we're doing, absolutely. But as educators, I feel like that's what we do every single day. And that's what we excel at doing. So just one more step in the process. Nothing to get flipped out about. It's just one more step at a time. Take it one step at a time. So 3 types of AI in our daily lives. I think we all know this. We've got reactive AI. These are the things like asking Siri what the weather's like, the Roomba going around and cleaning your carpets for you. We've got predictive. Because you've watched this, you may also like this. And then we have generative, which is where the majority of the focus is these days on outputs being created. Has anybody seen this video on AlphaFold? All right. I'm going to play it. It's a couple minutes long. I think it's a fascinating look at the impact of AI. While you're watching it, just keep in your brain time as a central theme.
Scientists have for decades been trying to predict how proteins fold into 3D shapes.
So things that jump out to anybody, something that you heard that you went, wow.
The one lady said she took 8 months to figure out how to do this thing, and then all of a sudden she did it, and a few minutes later she had the same thing.
Yeah, that's the one that always sticks in my brain too, is that is a research team in Germany that are developing an enzyme that breaks down and eats plastic. And her team of researchers, scientists, 8 months, huge project. They got where they got to with this crystalline structure, fed in the data, and out came almost an identical model within 4 minutes. So we think about the power in that context.
Okay, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but in that 4 minutes that was used up by the AI, how many of our resources was taken from it, from us, for that 4 minutes?
Are you talking environmental
Yes.
resources? I don't know specifically to that, but that is definitely a huge part of the AI conversation is environmental impact for sure. Yeah, but that I don't have that specific information. So all of this to say that there is tremendous power within this. We know that there are a multitude of benefits that we can find in using this in education. There is also a multitude of risks. These are the same ones that we have had on the table for a long time. They will continue to morph and change. Plagiarism's been a conversation forever. This is just the new iteration of it. We're looking at how do we have students collaborate, use creativity, work on soft skill development. Still going to be a conversation. But that's going to bring us into our exciting game. I love when I move that slide and everyone's face just goes. So, let's play Policy Pitfalls! All right. When you first came in, I handed you a piece of paper. On there are 10 scenarios. There are 10 policy pitfalls. If you're sitting alone, you may want to move to a different table. You don't have to. But I'm going to say let's take the next handful of minutes, read through those different scenarios and this different policy pitfalls, and try to match them up. Which scenario is leading to which policy pitfall? And then we'll come back together and we'll discuss and pick apart each one. I think I just want to keep this for like every time I'm in any room, just to bring everybody back together. All right, so let's pick through these together and see what we come up with and see what we'd like to talk about. So, pitfall 1, policy that ages faster than it's approved. Does anybody have a match with what that one would go with? What scenario? I hear A. Do we agree? Right. Yeah, I would definitely agree. We've got district writes a highly rigid 15-page AI policy that explicitly names ChatGPT 4.0 and Google Bard. 6 months later, the policy is completely obsolete because these tools have changed names and new systems have emerged. We all know that policy, even at its finest, committees, even at their most efficient, when you're making a board policy change, it's not going to happen quickly. So it's going to go through committee, it's going to go back to committee for revisions, it's going to go to the full board for a vote, and then it's going to be implemented. That's not going to happen overnight, which means that if we are getting granular, we are completely outdated before we begin. So the question that I had for this one is the policy principle-based or product-based? And I think that's like, from my lens, you know, if we are getting so granular with product-based policy, we're already outdated. Even that conversation of putting pen to paper is going to be outdated. Thoughts on this one? Experiences. Anybody have anything in their district cooking? It's a safe space. No one's going to say anything.
I mean,
Yeah.
when they go and block an AI, and then the next day, like, the kids are going off of that, and they're on a different one anyway. Like, why are you blocking it? Teach about how to enforce it, you know, they're gonna get a new platform anyway.
So yes, whack-a-mole has always been in education. It will always be in education. You know, the next iteration of what that will look like will absolutely be happening day by day. So yeah, as we get deeper into this, I think that's where that focus and that change needs to definitely shift, is the time to ban it all and bury our heads in the sand, we know is not going to work. All right, so pitfall 2, innovation without an owner. Anybody have the connection to what scenario that would go with? I heard H. H. Middle school math department approves a pilot for a new AI math app while the curriculum team independently buys a different AI writing assistant. Neither department knows what the other is doing, leading to fragmented expectations and zero central oversight. We all know if we all operate in silos, it's never as effective. We also know that if there is not someone leading the charge and help to guide everybody through figuring out what to do and how to roll things out, very quickly it becomes everybody doing whatever they're doing and nobody knows what anybody's doing. So thoughts on this one? I know that this is something that, this is my 21st year teaching or in education, and every single year we see this again and again and again of, you know, one department buying something and even the building principal may not know. Thoughts? All right. Yeah.
It's not so much the problem with them all buying it, which is fine if they want to do it, but they forget about the boots on the ground that has to implement.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you've got this supervisor saying this, and this supervisor saying that. It's the, nobody looks to see, you know, middle school, yeah, you're teaching one thing, but all academic is cross-curricular. So it doesn't matter if you're teaching math, in math comes ELA.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're teaching science, in science comes ELA. Like, it's all cross-curricular. So it's, yeah, you can buy what you want to buy. At some point, all the heads need to sit together
Mhm.
and figure out how does this affect all the teachers and how does it affect all the students. And when you do things like this, you're forgetting about the students.
And I think you're also forgetting about the teachers, and you're forgetting about what the end goal is. And I think that this is also, it can't be a one and done. That, you know, this needs to be that ongoing conversation, and it's going to continue to evolve, and it should. So how do we have all stakeholders have that voice, keep that voice present? And if we're going to start to roll things out, how do we do that with continued support? Because we've all, I'm sure, experienced, here's the new initiative, we've done one session on the opening day, you guys are all experts, have a good year, and it's never touched on again. But then it, you know, you're being questioned about why it's not working, and the wheels are falling off, and it's because we had 2 hours of training on something. That's not enough. So for sure, the conversation definitely needs to be everyone's voice in the room, not just one person in a silo. Okay, procurement without pedagogical, yeah, there you go. My brain has not had enough coffee. Alignment. Thoughts? Yeah, I would agree with that. So what instructional problem are we trying to solve? School district purchases an expensive district-wide license for AI lesson planning tool because it looks flashy, but they never check if it aligns with the state standards or core teaching methodologies. The shiny new object. There's always the shiny new object. A lot of times the shiny new object 5 years from now will be the same shiny new object with a new name and a different look. And then that'll get cycled out and the next one will get cycled in.
But also sometimes, they'll also buy the, how I say this, least expensive one to save the money, which doesn't help that either. So it makes it may be inexpensive and it doesn't work well, and it's still the same effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And reality is reality. We all know everyone's budget shrinks by the moment. So I think that's also the larger conversation to have with the funding formula for the state of New Jersey and the governor's office to figuring out how everybody has the funds necessary to not just buy the cheapest or buy nothing at all. Other thoughts? I do like that these just keep going up and down. Definitely helping me focus. Uploading protected student data into AI systems. Yeah. So, do we know, does staff know, does everyone know what is uploadable or non-uploadable, shall we say? So you want to save time, paste 3 complete confidential student IEP summaries into a public free AI chatbot to generate lesson accommodations. I think the red bells and sirens should be going off for everybody of if it's confidential, if it's PII, if it is a violation of data privacy, then right there is where the conversation stops. The last group had said, what if you strip out that personal identifiable information? Where's everything? You pull out the kid's name. I see some yeses, I see some no's.
There was some information is still out there, and since you just now made sensitive information public, even if you take the child's name out of it.
So let me take it one step further and say, what if it is the broad spectrum goal of what the child's accommodation is?
Say it's like, it's still a big no-no, like if you put your medical information in there without putting your name to it.
What if it is?
AI's always learning
They're
off the information. that you-
pacing goals from one IEP to another, like, in that confidential one kid's IEP, like, I don't know.
So, and this is
Yeah.
why this conversation is had, right? What if it is something that is, there is a 3rd grade student with dyslexia, and you're trying to figure out the best inroads of how to support that child in your 3rd grade classroom, or let's skip it up to middle school in your science classroom, or send it to high school in your, I don't know, prop stat classroom. I think that there is definitely a risk if you're just, obviously there's a huge risk if you just upload everything, but there's definitely a risk if you upload something that is nuanced, specific to that child or that district or your classroom. But I definitely think that it is, and I know, permissible by law if you were to put in the broad. I feel like every time this happens, I'm like, is there a wave of water coming that I don't know about? And this somehow is supposed to be like, the flooding will be fine. I think that if you think of it as the broad goal of how you're supporting, that's fine. Because you're looking for how can you go about doing that, and that is not going to be identifiable to that one specific student. One thing that I work with our teachers in my district with is using AI to find parallels with culture. So if you have a student who is new to the country and doesn't have that same cultural foundation as other students who have grown up in the country, how do we find the inroads of, okay, you are coming from here, and this celebration, this holiday, this experience, this whatever, is similar in these ways to this, and finding those inroads of drawing comparisons just as a start of that conversation and framework and knowledge discussion. AI can definitely help with coming up with some interesting ways of finding those comparisons. I would challenge you, throw something in there for a way of approaching a topic that you've taught for 1,000,000 years, and see if it comes up with some new hooks or new ways of introducing it or new exit strategies. I know every day that it comes up with at least one thing if I'm working on something like this where I go, wow, I would never have thought of that. And sometimes it's a positive, and sometimes it's a, I would never have thought of that because that's completely not what I needed to do. So take it for what it is. All right, pitfall 5, AI drafting high-stakes documents. We have D. Where must human authorship remain intact? So principal using that writes a high-stakes disciplinary letter. Same thing could be sub that out for a teacher or a staff member writing an email to a parent. Sub it out for someone's observation or child study team notes or whatever you want to do. If we're thinking about this, what is the major thing that should be staying at the forefront? Check your work, right? We all know that AI might give you something wonderful. It also is probably going to give you a lot of junk. We know that AI is built on flawed information, riddled with bias, riddled with stereotypes, riddled with misinformation. So yeah, it can help you to draft something, but at the end of the day, the experts, all of us, have to be the ones to put final eyes on there and adjust it before just saying copy paste. Again, safe space. Has anybody received an email that started with, Yes, here's a great way for you to. I have. I have from some of the higher ups. And I'm like, that's great that you're using it, but again, that's the attention to detail. That's that, have you actually read through what you are copying, pasting, sending, sharing, using? Because if not, that's the major pitfall right there. All right, over-reliance on AI detection tools. Yeah, G, right? English department introduced a strict policy, completely bans all AI tools, relies blindly on the online software program to automatically issue zeros disciplinary referrals. There is not a single, and I will say this with confidence, there is not a single AI software out there that is accurate and should be used consistently for doing these tasks, period. And I will have that conversation with anybody. There are some that are okay. There are some that are pretty good. None of them are flawless. None of them are going to do what they actually say they're going to do. Grammarly, whether you love them, hate them, I'm not plugging anything, I'm not knocking anything, I'm just saying Grammarly I find so interesting that they're like, we can help you with that writing, we can help you craft that, we can also help you detect that plagiarism, let me package all of it and sell all of it as additional add-ons. It's a great business model. It's also inaccurate. So, thoughts on this one? Blind policies. Pitfall 7, designing assessments AI can easily complete. Which one? Jay? I think the bigger question for me is, if we're doing something that can be completed by that chatbot within minutes, is it the best approach? Where is the thinking? Where is the action? Where is the assignment that's pushing that critical thinking or making the students step forward and do that research? It's not to say that AI shouldn't be used, absolutely. Thoughts on this one? Has anybody had any experience in their district with this?
I think what you say is that it needs to be something, the task needs to be something that the AI can easily complete, rely on thinking. But at some point, some sort of base knowledge, some sort of regurgitation, some sort of just, hey, what are we even learning here? Regurgitate to me. Something sort of wrong with that, especially for scaffolding, our learners that need the scaffolding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can take that piece and add to it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think that there's not one right answer to any of these things, nor should there be. But the reason why I put this one is, if you are approaching things the same way that you always have, with the same structure that is not changing based upon what is available to students, are you really putting forward the best way of approaching that assignment? And sometimes the answer may still be yes. But it's also something that you pause and reflect, pause and think for a moment, is it the best way? And is it wrong to say, we're going to do a split with this assignment? We're going to start it in class. I want you to start showing how we're working through this and structuring it, and then sure, finish it at home. Because at that point, let's all be honest with each other. Anything you send home, fill in the blank. With whatever nuanced comment you want to put there. All right, confusing personalization with automation. Yeah, we've got B, right? Rolling out this program spits out those generic worksheets that are deeply personalized learning. So this I think has been in existence forever. We know we want to work with students one-on-one, small groups, and we should. But when it becomes the worksheet factory to be able to free up the time to pull those kids over, that's, I think, when we need to press the pause button. And also calling it deeply personalized learning, I always just chuckle at, because I'm like, it's being built upon the last test score, but that's flawed in itself. Treating AI as a discipline issue, not a literacy issue. So I heard F and I heard G. I had it down as F. Using AI to help brainstorm, immediately treating it as a massive scandal, as a violation of academic integrity.
I mean, at a certain point, as a teacher, I would think that you'd have to change your course in terms of how you're going to
depends on what's your end goal of what you're trying to accomplish as well.
Yeah.
What are you trying to assess? What are you trying to measure?
So, I mean, I think the challenge is to rethink how learning is assessed, right? What are they getting? What are they getting out of this? Are they really learning anything, or are they just taking information and calling it their own?
Well, and I think even if we take AI out of the equation with that, hasn't that been the same conversation we've had forever anyway? You know, sub it in for Google, and someone just Googling something, finding the first thing that pops up, copying it, pasting it, and calling it a day. You know, we've had that forever. I think thinking about what is the learning target and what is the enduring understanding, what do you want the students to walk away with, and then building backwards is probably the safer approach with knowing that AI is going to be a part of that. It's also modeling for students. You know, we know that if we model with transparency, here's how you can use it, here's an appropriate way of using it, that also takes away some of that fun factor of, ooh, I'm using this and I know I shouldn't, because we know that a lot of students, that little rush of that is happening, especially with the middle school developing brain. Last pitfall, failing to prepare the board and the community. Yeah, you know, it's chaotic, everybody's there, they're furious because nobody was informed, nobody knew what was coming down the pike. And rightly so. You know, so keeping all stakeholders informed, I think I think we would all agree massive. Anything to touch on with these before we move forward? Anything that is a thing that's happened in your district, something that's brewing in your district, something that might be coming to your district? Again, nobody's going to be calling you out on what district you're in. You know, everybody, it's like right before lunch. Yeah.
I know that when it came to teacher assessments, what I did notice was that the administration was using AI because there were a lot of, like, some of it didn't make sense, so it looked like they just put it in there and didn't really like go through it.
You're saying for like observation?
Teacher
Yeah.
observations.
Yeah, well, I mean, my favorite is just with ChatGPT and like M-dash, like when you have that be like 8 times in a paragraph, that's, I don't care who you are, that kind of should make you pause. But yeah, I think it's across the board, regardless of who it is and what they're using it for. We're going to talk about Pareto principle in a minute, and that's, I think, a huge part of that.
Our principal told us to do all of our report cards in ChatGPT.
Thoughts on that? Principal says, do all of your comments for your report cards in ChatGPT.
Oh, I haven't done that, so, but that's what we were told. She said, save yourself some time, put them all in there. I was just like,
Thought?
Well, we can't even write in our own comments, we only have a drop-down list. So to
Oh, I
me,
wish.
that's more personalized than mine are, because I have to choose from, I mean, there's a bunch of them, but I still have this set list.
I know, we have to write like mini paragraphs for every subject.
I did not mean to start that. All right. So there's the pitfall. All right, so I am a visual learner. This was a lot of text-heavy stuff, so I took this and I threw it into ChatGPT and I said, give me some visuals. So I'm not going to read these to you. Just take a moment and look through them, you know, as I bring them up there. I do love that it immediately says any policy is a dusty old book. The slide QR will be at the end. We're running out of time. That's the longest one I'm going through. So this is a thing that we use in my district, and we try to keep it as something that we touch upon again and again with students and staff, is looking at all of these things under the 3 lenses of ethical issues, legal issues, and equity issues. I think those as 3 overarching umbrellas are a good way to move things through and move things forward, to keep the big things at the forefront of everybody's mind and conversation. And here come the shades. So hallucinations. Oh, question. Sorry.
I just have I'm sorry. So I guess my question is there a policy for the use of AI in general, like for, like a general policy usage anywhere?
Is there a general policy usage? It is completely governed by each district.
So there's none.
Correct. So every district is responsible for meeting the letter of the law. The letter of the law in the state of New Jersey says that you need to have policy in place that does govern the use of this.
But they don't tell you what the guidelines are.
There are some guidelines that have been put out, but they are very, very broad strokes. It is not going to be, here is what you have to do and how to do it. It is, the law states this has to be covered. And then the district can decide how they want to do that based upon their own district policy, the community, their programs, their structures.
And nothing in universities as well?
I can't speak to that. I work in K-12, so that I can't speak to.
Thank you.
So hallucinations, we know chatbots hallucinate, but they do so with certainty. They reinforce that bias. They validate misinformation. They create the illusion of expertise, and this is my favorite because it is true of all of them. They communicate in a sycophantic way. 99.9% of the time, whatever you feed in there, it's going to start with, that's a great idea. It is probably not always a great idea. So things to keep in mind, obviously, is, these structures of all of these programs are built on providing an answer. And when it doesn't know the answer, unless it's specifically programmed to not make it up, is going to make it up. So Pareto principle, if you're not familiar with it, this is where a lot of that administrative conversation comes into play. We all have tasks where, like report card comments, we could use AI to help us do that. We could draft an email and then send it through a chat, through ChatGPT, let's say, and say, check this for tone and clarity and any places that might be ambiguous or may cause this parent that I'm responding to get further aggravated at the situation. That's that 80-20 split. Let the AI help you with that 80%, those offloaded tasks. But at the end of the day, all of that last stuff has to be still with us in the driver's seat. You guys are the experts. You know your students. You know the community. You know the curriculum. So while it may help you to draft those things, copy-paste is not going to be the answer. Policy development, going back to what you were asking, there's a million resources out there, but there is nothing that is going to be mandated or endorsed specifically. Here's the Office of Educational Technology at the federal level. State of New Jersey's Office of Innovation has some additional supports there, but again, it's not going to spell it out completely. And there's a million other resources. I'm just clicking through. They're all hyperlinks, so when you get those slides, if you want to look at any of them more closely, you obviously can. This is one thing that my district has put in place. A lot of districts are looking to put something similar into place, and it's usually addressed in one of three ways. You've got the Board of Education policy, where it's baked into the acceptable use policy or a standalone policy. You've got a student pledge for appropriate use and code of conduct, or a combination of those two things together. It's just like anything else with code of conduct and student use. It's got to be something that's an ongoing conversation. Action planning steps, I'm not going to read through all that, obviously. So the final quote that I'll leave you with before we call it, because it's 11:55 on the dot, is AI won't replace us, but instead humans using AI will outperform those without it. And I think that this is just something to bear in mind, whether you are in favor of or in opposition of. It's here, it's not going away, so how do we adjust all of our mindsets to how we use it most effectively to help our students prepare for a future that, as we know, doesn't even exist yet. So, thank you. Enjoy lunch.
Thank you.